What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video from the 10-7 MMA show. And today's video is about the main event last night, Song Yadong versus Henry Cejudo, which I actually was very much looking forward to that fight. I couldn't wait to watch it at the end of the night. And obviously, as you guys all know, it went a bit strangely. And man, the reaction from Dana White, I feel bad for Henry Cejudo. I know a lot of people, MMA Joey included, are really ripping Cejudo to shreds, saying he should have continued. I'm going to give you all my thoughts on this, but just off the jump, I feel like a lot of these criticisms are unfair. Henry had suffered a couple illegal blows. I think there was one or two groin shots, and then I think there was two actually. Yeah, two groin strikes that he had taken, illegal strikes. And then he got that really, really bad eye poke. It was a terrible eye poke. I mean, how can you expect somebody to continue on and keep fighting when he was saying that he could only see out of one eye, so everything was blurry from the other eye? And maybe some fighters do fight through that. I don't know, but just from my own perspective, when you can only see out of one eye in the midst of a fight, so your depth perception is completely thrown off. I just can't even imagine trying to stick that out. And again, maybe fighters have to do this all the time when they get eye poked. And so it's a major deviation from the norm of behaviors and expectations in the UFC. And that could be the case. And if so, then maybe I can say that I'm wrong. But in general, I just feel that he's getting way too harsh criticism for stepping out of a fight where essentially it was a guarantee that he was just going to get destroyed because he couldn't see anything. So anyways, that happened. He took that eye poke. He took the full 5 minutes to rest and recover, which he's allowed to do. I know maybe not everybody loved it. He was sitting down in the octagon at one point. People were booing. He's allowed to do that. They were saying on the broadcast, it's a vet move. Why not take advantage of that if he felt like he needed it? If he felt like even if he needed to catch his breath, he didn't commit the foul. I don't see the problem. Anyways, I just think the whole situation, he's getting way too much criticism. And now on top of that, Dana White is super bummed and super pissed off at Henry. And I don't know what's going to happen to Henry's career. Maybe he chooses to retire. I know that's what Demetrius Johnson said on one of his videos, that maybe he thinks it's time for Henry Cejudo to retire. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. Of course, as Justin always says, that decision should be left solely up to the fighter. This is their vocation. This is the way they make money. And they should be the ones to decide if and when they end their career. Obviously, if you get cut, that's another story, right? But he should be the one to decide. He knows himself and he knows his body. I got to say, though, up until some of these egregious fouls, I actually thought Henry Cejudo looked really good. I was getting excited. I was definitely rooting for him. And, of course, we want to see the young up-and-comer Song Yadong, very talented fighter and striker. I thought Song was looking great, too. He did a really good – I mean, Henry was not able to take him down. He kept his distance. He was cautious until he started warming up and getting his feeling for range and understanding that he had a major speed advantage over Henry, and then you could see him get comfortable. That's when that eye poke happened. So major credit to Song Yadong. He definitely was winning the fight, but Henry was doing some good work. And Henry, when you thought he was out, he was coming back, landing some hard shots. Song Yadong took them and just kept coming. And maybe later in the rounds, who knows what would have happened. I was very excited and very curious to see. And I know a lot of people don't like Henry Cejudo, but he's interesting. He's interesting. For whatever you want to say about him being cringe and this and that, he's an interesting fighter with a great resume. He's done tremendous things in the sport. He's got his podcast. He's trying to be out there. He's a personality. And as a fan, I was excited to see him fight. I was excited to see if he could still come back and make some sort of a run. And again, one of the guys he lost to was Merab. Look at what Merab's done to everybody else. So you got to give him his credit. Anyways, let's first turn it over to Dana White's initial statements to this question from Oscar Willis from the Mac Life. So check this out.
Did you know, as Henry's getting to minute 4, minute 5 with the eye poke, that he's probably not going to be able to continue?
Yeah.
Do you think he was kind of like gaming the 5 minutes to see if it would come back, or do you think he was just desperate to continue? What do you think of his decision making in the moment?
I have no idea. I'll let him answer all those questions.
You can see when Dana's answering this question, he says, I have no idea, but he looks angry. He almost looks like he's shaking a little bit. I could be misreading it, but he looks very aggravated and very annoyed. And I understand why, because with that type of slowdown, look, you have to understand the way that Dana is looking at this fight. He's looking at it as their presentation to the world, a money-making opportunity. And when you have a slowdown in action, you can see people click off, you can see people lose interest. So it diminishes the product in real time. And I get that. So he probably was upset that Henry did that. Now, from the standpoint of the athlete and the rules, he's allowed to do that. You don't have to do everything to maximize the quality of the product at all times when you're the fighter. You also have to look out for your safety and look out for your well-being and your best interest. So when you look at all that together, yeah, maybe he wasn't looking out for the best interest of the sport and the brand at that moment, but he felt he needed to take the break. He was allowed to do it. I don't see a major problem with it. So it is what it is. But clearly, I think you can read the body language. Dana was not happy about that.
You know, song looked good. And yeah, only he can answer those questions.
It was a good competitive.
I don't know if he thought.
He said the same thing about Armin Sarukian when Armin pulled out of the fight. He said, do you think he could have fought? He said, only he's going to be able to answer those questions. And he's clearly upset with Armin not giving him another title shot, making him put him back through the gauntlet of the lightweight division. It's that same answer. He was annoyed with Armin. He's annoyed with Henry.
I stop here. Is this a DQ and no contest? Or I don't know what he was thinking, or maybe he can't see.
Before the fight, it was competitive. Song did look.
So I said, hey, I don't know. Was he? Hey, he was thinking, should I get a DQ here? Should I keep fighting? Will I get a no contest? What's going to happen? He's saying basically he was figuring out how to play the game, play the system, play the rules for his benefit. Or maybe he couldn't see. This is his last option. So obviously Dana doesn't believe him. I don't know. You get poked. It was a horrible eye poke. People take these eye pokes I'm not saying Dana White does, but I think people don't give these eye pokes enough credibility in terms of how much they can alter a fight and damage somebody's ability to fight properly. If you literally one of your eyes is blurred, it destroys your depth perception. There are people obviously that fight with one eye, but they've had years to recalibrate their vision, their balance, and their understanding of distance. I talked to another gentleman who's blind in one eye, who's a fighter, not in the UFC, but for regional promotions. And he told me that it took him 5 years after suffering a horrendous car accident where he lost one of his eyes. It took him 5 years to be able to just walk correctly, to be able to train correctly, to be able to go in and have basically what you lose depth perception, but you can regain it through different ways of using your one eye at that point, right? You can no longer utilize actual depth perception, but you can have it. You can regain an understanding of distance. So it takes a really long time. So imagine somebody having to try and do that adjustment in real time within a fight, within a few minutes. It's insane. It's insane. All right. So now we come to the next point. So in the cage, in the octagon, Henry and Song Yadong talked about running it back and having a rematch. And it was Song Yadong that threw it out there. He's like, hey, man, I want to run this back. I want to do this right. I want to get this victory the right way, which I thought was really admirable. Even Michael Bisping gave him credit. And Henry agreed. He said, absolutely, let's do it again. Now they're asking Dana if and when we will see this rematch. Check this out.
Just getting back to the main event, obviously Henry and Song seem like they want to have the rematch. Is that kind of what you're thinking, that they should run that one back? Or?
Not at all.
Not at all? Okay.
Not even a little bit.
Why is that?
Again, same response in regards to Armin re-challenging Islam for the belt. Nope, he's going to go back to the end of the queue or whatever he said. And it's that same response. You can tell, we can see the trends now in Dana White. Why is he's reacting the exact same way he did there as he is here? And it's because I don't think he doesn't believe that Henry really couldn't see. He thinks that he stopped to game the system and he wasn't being authentic, just like I believe he felt that Armin said he had an injury when he just couldn't make the weight, which we had a big deep dive on our channel about that. So there it is. Dana White is essentially saying he doesn't want this rematch because he doesn't believe Henry.
I just don't want to see it again. Do you?
No, I thought it was a good fight leading up. It did end.
You want to see it again? We should probably do it in a couple months.
It depends on the eye, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. All right. We got your.
Oh my God. He just does not believe him. He's like, yeah.
Your answer on that. Seattle was great this week. It really.
Okay. Anyways, so that's the gist of it. He's not going to let him run him back. He instead is going to probably allow this win to bolster Song Yadong's rankings and to move him forward, essentially leaving Henry in the dust. I think this might be the last straw between Dana and Henry. I think Dana was already annoyed with Henry when he retired back in the day, as it was, I'm pretty sure it was a play to get more money. He was trying to strong arm the UFC. I believe this was my recollection of what happened, or at least the takes of other folks in terms of what happened with Henry's initial retirement. So he tried to do it that way. I think it was even said that Henry was planning to retire after his last loss, but Dana wouldn't give him the mic, and so he didn't. And I think he was glad in retrospect that he didn't. But the bottom line is, whatever may have been hanging on in terms of the relationship between Henry and Dana, I think that's over with. I'm pretty sure Dana's completely pissed off with Henry. I don't know who he would even get as another opponent. I'm curious to see where Henry goes in the rankings, but man, yeah, this might. Demetrius Johnson said that Henry might retire. The only reason why I think he might be right is because I think this is really now going to put Henry out of title contention, not because of lack of ability or skill. Again, I actually thought he looked pretty good. I'd be curious to know what you guys think. Maybe there's a little bit of a slowdown in round 3. I thought he looked quick. I thought he looked sharp. It's still pretty explosive, and I thought he looked good. But that being said, it's not because of that. I think now, because of this decision to sit out and not continue to fight and make a big show about the eye poke, which I still think is potentially valid. Again, I don't know for sure. We can never know for sure if he was exaggerating about the damage done to his eye or not. But I for one believe him, and I think it was a legitimate decision. Regardless, Dana White's not happy about it. Who's he going to give him? Is he even going to give him somebody in the top 10 after this? And if that's not the case, is Henry going to take that fight after being a champion in the UFC and an athlete that has been so heavily decorated in combat sports? I don't know. I don't think so. It's just such a bummer, because regardless of what people want to say about Henry Cejudo, he's interesting to me. I want to tune into his fights. I want to see what happens. I want to see what he says before. I want to see what he says after. He's not one of my absolute favorite fighters, but he's an interesting fighter, and he's got a great resume. So it's very unfortunate. It's a major bummer. I think this might be the move that will eventually lead Henry to get pushed out of the UFC via retirement or via some other way. I don't know what's going to happen, but it is what it is. Kind of a sad day and a sad end to this fight. But props to Song Yadong. He's on his way. He's a star, training with great coaches, Uriah Faber and that whole team. So well done, Song Yadong. Definitely got that victory. A last thing I want to say, somebody asked Dana White about the eye poke and whether a point should have been taken. He said, hey, was it intentional? If it's not intentional, why would he have done it? He was already winning the fight. So if it's not intentional, why should there be a point taken? And I don't know. It just sucks because these eye pokes and these groin shots, maybe less so, but the eye pokes, they alter the fight so much. And it's one of those things where, regardless of the intent, they're making it a penalty or a point deduction solely on the basis of intention, which is pretty hard to gauge. I'm not saying that was an intentional eye poke by any means, but that's something hard to gauge. And then it's like, well, it wasn't intentional, but it still massively changes the direction and the outcome of the fight. The case in point right here, he couldn't continue to fight. Now, I'm not saying he would have won, but he could have had the chance to win in the later rounds. So it massively altered the direction of the fight. So at what point do we have to say that maybe an adjustment to the rules need to be made? For example, there can come just like we have in law, we have strict liability for certain things. Maybe there has to come a point where it's such an egregious foul that we need to just apply strict liability. We can't just look at intentional. I mean, when has there even been a clear-cut case of an intentional eye poke? I can't even remember. So I think as far as the refs are generally concerned, they're all unintentional. You're just putting your hands out. And then how do you call it intentional? I think something needs to change. It's a real bummer, especially when those fouls can be so impactful. Anyways, that's all I got. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and let me know what you think about Henry's performance. Do you think he totally copped out? I know people are saying that, but again, think about it from your perspective. Stop trying to think about it as like these fighters need to be robots, immortal, and just plow through anything and everything. If you got your eye severely poked where everything was blurred out from one eye, would you want to keep fighting if you're in a street fight or in a cage fight? I think most of us would immediately be like, yo, I'm out. I'm done, because I'm just going to get beat up. What's the point of this, right? So just think about it from that perspective and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you guys so much for joining, and we will see you in the next video. Take it easy.